Hey guys, it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. Today I have my Once Upon a Book Club Advent box for you, so stay tuned. So normally these videos would be coming out around end of December, beginning of January, but due to COVID and whatever was going on with the postal service, my Advent box didn't arrive until the first of the year. It was very unfortunate. I was very bummed about it. Other people got their packages on time before Christmas, and mine for some reason got stuck in Arizona for 3 weeks and didn't even leave Arizona until Christmas, or until the day after Christmas. So I have my Advent box here, and I've decided, because I have other videos that I have planned throughout, I'm just going to squeeze these in where I can, and it's going to be probably spread out over the month of January and February. And they did this box different than how they've done boxes in the past, so this is going to be a bit of a series to show you. So opening the box up, and we have this. It is an entire book here. These are the 12 days of Book Clubmas. These are 12 short stories in here, and with each short story there is a gift that goes along with it. So throughout this series, I'm going to read one of the stories and open the gift that goes along with it. So you get the story and the gift, and not just an unboxing of what everything is. So in today's video, we will be doing Day 1. Finding La Sabrenique by Margie Sinchal. Jillian Kendall plaited her hair and examined herself in the mirror. Gray strands highlighted her temple area of her chestnut brown hair. Maybe she should have colored her hair last night. Well, it was too late now to do anything about that. She touched up the mascara that framed her brown eyes. She couldn't believe she was doing this, even if she hadn't been given a choice. Her mother-in-law, Maeve, had been quite clear in that matter. Jillian was to take this gift of a trip to La Sabrenique and then meet her daughters in Paris, all paid for. When she returned, she was to move into the next phase of her life. Mom, her oldest daughter, 22-year-old Chloe, called from the hall. You almost ready? The plane leaves in just over 2 hours. You don't want to cut it this close. Yes, I'm ready. If only the heart palpitations would take a break. Chloe peeked her head in the door. A braid? Mother, seriously? What? Jillian patted the length to make sure there wasn't an errant loop or escaped strand. It's just for the plane ride. You know it's like a 24-hour trip. She left Portland at 8:15 and arrived the next morning in Paris around the same time. Yeah, because you're crossing like 50 time zones. 50? 14-year-old Jory peeked her head in. That many? No, your sister is exaggerating. Promise me you'll wear your hair differently at least half the time you're gone. Chloe raised Jillian's braid up and wrapped it into a bun. Anything but a braid. Promise. Jillian crossed her heart. She could pile it into a messy bun with a clip the rest of the time. What Chloe didn't know. You have your passport, right? Chloe changed tactics to drill her. And your ID, your transfer pass, your itinerary. She paused not to take a breath, but to consider what she, or more importantly Jillian, might have forgotten. I'm good, honey. Jillian reassured her daughter, who seemed to be under the impression that Jillian lacked the capacity to organize her own life. True, that had been her husband's responsibility for all those years. What Chloe failed to realize was that once your fail-safe was snatched out from under you, you learned to swim. Swimming was so much better than sinking. Mom, you can't blame her, 14-year-old Jory said. We just know you. Had known her. She'd changed after Scott's death. She'd risen to the challenge of leaving her complacent life and making changes she'd put off for far too long. She'd started eating better and losing weight. Okay, some of that had happened because for about 6 months after Scott's death, nothing had sounded good, and the things that did brought back unbidden memories. Pretty soon, she'd sustained herself on things Scott hadn't liked, which consisted of salads, veggies, and seafood. Since she couldn't sleep unless she was bone tired, she started taking evening walks, which soon evolved to evening jogs, and as the weight came off, evening runs. She'd never figured she'd be more fit at 50 than she'd been 40. But then she never thought she'd be a widow that young either. Your charger. Chloe was determined to find something her mother had forgotten or misplaced. You did get a universal charger, right? Because you're going to need it to keep in touch with us. While Chloe looked like Jillian, with her big brown eyes and thick auburn highlighted hair caught up in a ponytail because she hadn't taken a shower yet, she was her father in every other way. She had his organizational skills, his love of sports and all things blazers, and his insistence of always being right. Jillian nodded. Yes, dear, all set. She used a tone that wouldn't be misinterpreted. No need to rouse the pit bull in her daughter. Then I guess we can go. Chloe opened the door and a blast of cool morning air shot in. Did you check the weather in France before you packed? Jillian held up her iPhone. Love my weather app. The weather was mild in the south of France as autumn knocked on the door. The mornings were warm, but by the time the day's work was done, cooler breezes prevailed. At least that's what she'd read on the volunteer website for the restoration project. They piled into Chloe's car, and Jillian was beginning to be thankful for the security restrictions at the airport that enabled her to insist the girls just drop her off. It was bad enough going through Chloe's inquisition in private. She didn't want to make a spectacle at the airport. And she wanted to leave with good vibes at her back, so she didn't worry about how her girls would fare for 2 weeks without her. The logical part of her knew they'd be fine, but the mama bear part of her was wringing her hands on the inside. You've got the transfer information with you as well? Chloe put the car into drive and started toward the airport. Right here. She patted the zipper compartment of her carry-on that also held her passport and itinerary. Check, just to make sure. Chloe came to a stop at the red light and pushed her black-rimmed glasses up. Who left their entire wardrobe hanging from the back of the bathroom door on our Disney trip? You were 9, but you still forgot. Talk about holding a grudge, geez. And it took all of 10 minutes to rectify. Maybe 15 if they'd had to turn around on Airport Way because the 205 bridge wasn't conducive to U-turns. To appease her daughter, Jillian exaggerated, opening the front pocket on her carry-on to withdraw her paperwork. Everything was in a neat little folder she'd purchased online. See, here it is. Chloe glanced over to examine the papers. That's cool, Mom. Jory said from the back seat. I'm glad you like it. I have one for each of you ready to go at home for your leg of my trip. Her daughters were to meet her in 2 weeks in Paris. What about your hotel confirmation? Chloe continued her interrogation. In my email. You didn't print it out? What if your phone gets lost? Or your email won't connect? Then I guess I'll sleep on the streets. Mom! Would you really, Mom? Jillian couldn't tell if Jory was worried or impressed by the idea. I'll be fine, girls. Having to reassure her daughters reinforced her confidence. After giving in to Maeve's demands and Chloe's persuasion, Jillian had planned this trip for the better part of the last few months. She'd worked through all the contingencies she could think of and prepared for them, without help from Scott, because she didn't have a choice. It was funny how those plans had begun to heal her. La Sabrenique was a working vacation. During the day, visitors helped restore the medieval village of Saint Victor Le Caste, and in the afternoons they would explore the area on their own. Jillian had first heard about the experience around 10 years ago. She'd even put a deposit down once when her sister, Bex, had decided it would be a great 40-something birthday trip. But then life had gotten in the way and she'd had to cancel. She was surprised that Maeve had remembered. Today she was making that dream come true. She was leaving her fears and regrets in the past and looking forward to the adventure that awaited her. Mom, aren't you scared? Jory asked as Chloe's horn blared and she cussed out a driver who'd cut in front of her. Of your sister's driving? Every single day. Not funny. Jillian smiled as the tension began to soften. No, Jor, I'm excited. And she was, if she didn't focus on what she was leaving behind, if even for just a couple of weeks. What if one of your planes crashes? She had a layover in Atlanta for 3 hours before spending 8+ hours in the air to get to Paris. What if they don't? Then you'll have a wonderful adventure. Jillian nodded. That's my plan. Jory was the easy child, the optimist, and conciliatory one. So you're really not scared? Why, are you? She shrugged and averted her gaze out the window. There aren't any boats on the river. Duh, it's like 6 in the morning. Are you sure I should be staying with Chloe all alone? Jory didn't look away from the window. One of us might kill the other. Then you won't make it to Paris to meet me. Jory met her mother's gaze finally. I guess I better not kill Chloe then. I guess not. Please, we all know I'm more the murdering type than you. Yeah, but I wanted to make it home without having to hitchhike. Jillian laughed at her daughter's banter. I'm going to miss you girls, something fierce. She half expected one of them to tell her to stay home, but they didn't. Mom leaned over and gave Chloe a hug and a kiss. Take care of your sister. I scowled, as if I needed someone to take care of me. Of course, Chloe's words seemed to get stuck in her throat. We'll see you in 2 weeks. She pulled away. In Paris. In Paris, Mom agreed. She opened her door and got out. I pulled her suitcase out with me. I couldn't look at her because my eyes were filled with tears. Even though I knew it was going to be hard, I had insisted on seeing her off. I knew this trip had been Dad's last wish for her and that she needed it as well, but there was a part of me that was scared of Mom traveling so far away from us. Hey, baby girl. Mom took me in her arms. You know I'm going to be okay, right? I nodded into her shoulder. Don't let your sister throw a big bash, Mom said. I'm counting on you. As if she could stop me, Chloe said, and the Kendall girls all laughed together. That's the best note I could leave on, Mom said, and hugged me once more. I buried my face further into her, searching for a scent to concentrate the memory. There was a hint of lavender and chamomile. Mom, did you spray your sleep scent on you? She pulled away and shrugged. It's on my scarf so I can use it to fall asleep on the plane. That's why you're wearing a scarf? It was a shiny silky thing with big bold flowers that matched her peach shirt. I borrowed it from Aunt Bex. Mom gave me another quick hug and kissed the top of my head. I'll see you in 2 weeks, baby girl. It's going to be great. You'll see. She released me, hiked on her carry-on over her shoulder, and took the handle of her suitcase. Be good girls. I love you both more than anything. And then she joined the line of people heading into PDX. I climbed into her seat that's still warm from her and watched until she disappeared completely behind the turning door. You okay? Chloe asked. I nodded because I couldn't talk without the words getting stuck in my throat. Homeward bound then. Chloe pulled into the far left lane, one lane at a time. Can't we wait until her plane leaves? George, that's like 2 hours away. Right, darn airport rules. I guess we could get breakfast. I think there's an IHOP around here. That perked me right up. Really, IHOP? My sister definitely knew the way to make me feel better. Yeah, and then after we're done eating, we can park along Marine Drive and watch the airplanes take off. How are we going to know which one's Mom's plane? How many Air France planes do you think are leaving at the same time? Good point. I settled back into the seat where the scent of lavender and chamomile lingered and made me feel better. Chloe had planned on IHOP to cheer her sister. Jory was still at an age where little surprises reaped big rewards, like eating a gooey pancake breakfast chased away your worry. What Chloe couldn't give for a little of that. Ever since her dad had been diagnosed with cancer, she felt as if she were holding her breath. If she let go, everything would collapse around her. She thought it would get better after he died. How horrible did that sound? As if she wanted her father to die so she could breathe again. Even though they'd had 4 years to prepare for his death, among the highs of remission and the lows of treatment and reoccurrence, her mom still fell apart when he died. It had fallen to Chloe to make sure Jory got to school on time, did her homework, and took a shower. She loved her sister, but man, she had BO problem if she skipped even a day. This trip had been Dad's idea, and it had fallen on Chloe to help Grandma to see it through. Right down to getting Mom's 50th birthday present delivered to La Sabronique so it was waiting for her. Chloe's only regret is that she wouldn't be there to see the look on Mom's face when she opened the gift. What are you thinking about? Jory asked. Because you've barely touched your omelet. Jory's stack of cheesecake pancakes topped with strawberry compote had been decimated. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her sketchbook. Of course she came prepared. She pushed aside her plate and set the sketchbook on the table and started what she called drafting, light chicken scratch marks that later would become clear. Right now, though, the final picture was only clear in Jory's head. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. She lied because she didn't want to make Jory sad, just because she was feeling a bit melancholy. I was thinking you should go back to school. Whoa, school? Chloe hadn't seen that coming. Hunched over her sketchbook, Jory's head bobbled. Yeah, why shouldn't you? I don't know. I think I missed my opportunity. Her dad had been diagnosed just as she was heading to Gonzaga. She'd applied and gotten a deferment, but then he was still in treatment the following fall, and she'd abandoned her college dreams. It hadn't been as hard as it sounded. She'd do it all over again just to spend that time with her father. So you want to be a barista the rest of your life? Chloe ignored how close Jory had come to the truth. If I'd wanted to go to school that bad, I already would have. Jory shook her head. You didn't go back because you didn't know what you wanted to do. And I do now? I know now. Her sister looked up and held up her sketch. It was Chloe in shaded scrubs with a stethoscope necklace. You should be a nurse. Nurse? Chloe sputtered into her coffee. Me? You're crazy. While the thought of the work it would take exhausted her, the idea kind of thrilled her. To have a focus, to have a plan, to build her own future. You were so good with Dad. Yeah, because it was Dad. Jory shook her head. Remember when he was in that chemo room? You helped those other patients out when the nurses and aides were too busy to get them right away. Nobody else did that. She couldn't stand to see someone struggle when she could help. I don't know. Well, I do. Jory tore the page out of her book and handed it to Chloe. Just think about it. Chloe set the picture aside and speared into her omelet. You know, Mom's better and chasing her dream. I'm good, Jory said. Maybe it's time you take your dreams off the shelf and play with them. Chloe looked from the drawing up to her sister, the sage. Jillian felt lucky that she'd been able to sleep on the long stretch from Atlanta to Paris as she deboarded in CDG Airport. She'd made it through customs and got her first stamp in her passport. She strolled out of the airport and hailed a taxi by copying what she saw other travelers doing. It wasn't a skill that was needed in the burbs. In awfully bad French, she gave the taxi driver the name of her hotel and braced herself in the back seat. Her breath caught as the Eiffel Tower came into view, and she realized she was in Paris, France. She felt like pinching herself just to make sure it wasn't a dream. "It's magnifique, no?" The driver caught her eye in the mirror. "Oui." His laugh was proud and knowing. He was lucky to live in such a wonderful place. "You are here for long?" Jillian shook her head. "Overnight. Tomorrow I leave for Avignon." "That is disappointing." She wasn't sure if he was flirting or just being a Parisian proud of his city, so she merely nodded and turned toward the window to gawk some more. He pulled in front of the Hotel Passy Eiffel. "We are here." Jillian gazed up the front of the building where balconies nestled in the ivory walls. The entrance was dark wood, mahogany, and beveled glass that shimmered in the sunlight. It looked more stately library than hotel. She liked that. She slipped her hand around her suitcase and walked into the hotel. The foyer was another surprise. Bright white walls and lake blue accessories. Classy, but cozy. The woman behind the counter nodded with a demure smile. "Mademoiselle Kendall?" "Oui." Along with merci, that was the extent of her French. She hoped it wouldn't be held against her. She walked up to the counter, thankful she'd opted for early check-in. After almost 19 hours with the time difference and layover, she had no idea exactly what day, let alone hour, it was supposed to be. Her room was decorated like a dream. Wallpaper clouds framed by ocean blue wainscoting and matching carpet. Glass doors that opened out onto her own pocket balcony. The room was small but efficient for her needs, which foremost was a quick shower before she took off exploring the neighborhood around her. While her comfy bed called to her like a lovesick siren, she was determined to get a good night's sleep before she boarded the TGV for Avignon tomorrow. After her shower, Jillian pulled on a pair of black capris, a loose flowery top, and black flats. Comfort was her main objective as she took in the streets of Paris. The Eiffel Tower loomed over the neighborhood to the left, so Jillian turned right. She promised the girls that she'd save the sightseeing for them. With no agenda in mind, she strolled down the cement block sidewalks, gazing into windows, smiling at shop owners, and just taking it all in. She was surprised by the scent in the air. She'd expected sweetness, not car exhaust, and she was too far away from the sign to catch a whiff of river water. She walked with no purpose or plan, taking turns when something looked interesting, eventually finding herself on a pedestrian street of cobblestone. Now this was the street she'd always imagined in her dreams. An enticing scent broke through her consciousness, and she followed the trail to the front of an outdoor cafe. Copying other patrons, she settled at a small table that looked out onto the world. When the waitress came by, Jillian ordered a chocolat chaude and a pastry she had to point to because she didn't know what it was. As she enjoyed her breakfast, people watched and listened to the conversations that bubbled around her, even if she didn't understand the words. The emotions and laughter didn't need a translator. Best of all, none of the conversations required her input. She didn't have to make a decision or pick a casket. It was simply wonderful and freeing. After her delicious reprieve, Jillian went back to the streets again. She discovered the Maison de Blazak, a little museum dedicated to 19th century novelist Honoré de Balzac. She didn't know him or his work, although after seeing how he'd lived and wrote, she was determined to find his novel, The Human Comedy, on Amazon when she arrived back in the States. The museum had been a nice respite from the steady stream of people. She'd walked into the best-smelling Bulgari and bought a flute, which looked like a baguette for one, to take back to her hotel, and then wandered through an open-air market picking out fresh grapes and some olives. She'd considered a mango, but realized she didn't have a knife to dissect it. She visited a creamery and chose a selection of cheeses to go with her bread. As her feet grew weary, Jillian decided to head back to the hotel. She passed a window and caught her reflection. The braid. Was Chloe right? Should she do something different? Scott had loved running his fingers through her hair when he was sick. He said something about the texture calmed him when nothing else could. Jillian hadn't cut her hair, not even a trim, since before his death. Maybe it was time. Jillian returned to her hotel room considerably lighter, emotionally and physically. She'd found a beauty shop and had let the hair artiste have her way, with one disclaimer. Jillian had to be able to style it on her own. Drip dry hair would have been preferable, but this was Paris. She doubted that even they knew what that meant. She went to the bathroom and examined her hair privately. She oohed and awed appropriately for the stylist, but didn't everyone do that? She raked her fingers through the shorter strands and saw that the volume had been maintained in the bi-level bob. Golden highlights softened the brown and hid the gray. Her hair framed her face and seemed to bring out the gold flecks in her eyes. "What do you think, Scott?" She looked up at the ceiling. She was pretty sure he'd be okay with it. He always wanted what made her happy, and this new haircut made her happy. The next morning, Jillian woke up in time for breakfast in the hotel, checked out, and headed to the TGV. On board, she wished she'd brought a book with her. It was only a 3-hour trip, but people watching the same people got old fast. She realized it had been forever since she'd thought about reading. She'd always packed a book when she took Scott to his appointments. Her mind raced with so much other stuff, the next appointment, treatment, or result. She couldn't focus on the words in front of her, so she simply stopped opening them. She hadn't even considered packing one for this trip because books belonged to a Jillian in the past. But this Jillian of the future now regretted that action. Maybe if she was able to get a message to her girls, she'd ask them to pick her up a book, and she'd start reading in Paris. Then reading would belong to the Parisian Jillian. Debarking the TGV, she walked out of the station and inhaled. Wait, that's what the scent she was waiting for. Fresh air and flowers. Lavender, definitely. But there were others in there too, and it smelled divine. She'd have no trouble falling asleep tonight. She hoped her roomie was okay with open windows, and that the rural French countryside didn't have rodents or insects to be wary of. Her stomach was twisted in a knot of anticipation and terror as she boarded the bus that would take her closer to La Sabrenique, and there'd be no turning back. She was going to be restoring some ancient fortress or stone bridge in the French countryside. As the bus trundled along the countryside, panic bounced around with each jostle. What had Maeve been thinking? What had she been thinking? "American?" a French accent baritone asked. Jillian turned from the window toward the voice. The man across the aisle leaned toward her, his gray eyes crinkled at the sides. "Yes," she said, "and you obviously aren't." "Canadian," he said. "So closer than you might imagine." "Phew, someone who spoke English. You're going to La Sabrenique too?" "I am." He held out his hand. "Mark Simon." Jillian placed her hand in his for a quick moment. "Jillian Kendall." He glanced at her ring. "Miss?" Once. She twisted the ring around her finger. "Widowed." "Are you excited for our adventure?" She liked that he didn't offer her a pitiful platitude. She knew everyone was so sorry that she'd lost her husband, just as she knew they were thankful that it hadn't happened to them. Terrified might be more appropriate. His laugh rumbled along with the bus, as if he was part of the country cacophony. "I'm sure we'll be fine. At least my research didn't show any fatalities." There's always a first time, but Jillian had to admit she felt better. The conversation began to chase away her jitters. Their conversation grew to include a woman from Sweden and an Italian couple, and helped the bus ride go by quickly. They arrived at La Sabrenique and moved into their assigned rooms for the 2 weeks. Jillian's roommate was scheduled to arrive on a later bus, so she had her room to herself for a couple more hours. She walked into her room and gasped at the sight of a wrapped box on one of the beds. The box had her name written on it in Scott's handwriting. What? She closed the door behind her, made her way over to the bed, and sat down. Ugh, this is gonna make me cry. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. "Happy birthday, babe." Geez, he was right. Today was her birthday. She'd been so caught up with the flights in Paris, she'd forgotten that today was her 50th birthday. "I hope you like it. No love, your surprise. I hope Mom and Chloe were able to convince you to go. I know how much you like to be in control, so having someone else schedule this must have hurt. I know how much you wanted to take this trip, and I ruined it by getting sick." A sob caught in Jillian's throat. That's right. Scott's cancer had been diagnosed just weeks after she'd sent in her initial deposit. The following couple of years blurred together in a jumble of visits, treatments, and tears. So many tears. I've given you a 2-year window to grieve, but now it's time that you begin to build a new you for the next phase of your life. Have a great time and try not to work so hard that you forget to enjoy the little pleasures. All my love, Scott. Oh. Jillian folded the letter and took a deep breath. She was surprised that she wasn't crying. Surprised and delighted. She opened the box. Now we open our gift. Oh! Okay, fine. Day 1. Okay, here is day 1. It says, she opened the box and found the newest book by her favorite author. This story. Okay, so you actually this year could get 2 different kinds of boxes. You could get a YA box or an adult box. Typically it's just adult, and everything in the box remains the same in both boxes except for the books. The books will be either YA or adult. In the past they've always been adult, and not a lot of the books are books that I would actually have read, and so I was really excited when they decided to do a YA box. Okay, what do we have? Okay, we have a book and what looks like a little notebook here. So there's a bookmark in the notebook, and there's a note on the first page of this notebook. It says, Mom, just so you know, I took your beige sweater out of your suitcase. Really, Mom? Beige? I thought you were going to France, not the library. Okay, that's not what I really wanted to say, but Mom, it's so blah. I think I'm going to burn it before you get home. You've made a ton of changes these past few years, and I am so proud of you. I realize that in between my nagging, I forget to tell you that, but I so am. Daddy would be so proud of you. He'd be so happy that you're finally taking this trip, the trip you've dreamed of forever, just like me and Jory are. So enjoy. Drink too much French wine, eat creamy cheese slathered on warm bread, and maybe kiss a Frenchman. Just don't share the details. Love you more than the Blazers. And then the pages are just lined, and this one's hard. Like, why they gotta make this the very first story? Whew. Okay, and then the bookmark says, busy like a bee, frolic like a butterfly, sing like a cricket, mama bug, fly free. And then the book is called Immoral Code by Lillian Clark. It says, Payback's a Glitch. It's black with like a pink foil font. This says, the mastermind, Nari. Nari is also the hacker, the coordinator, and the con woman. Basically the evil genius who makes this entire heist possible. The right-hand woman, Bellamy. Bellamy is also the motive, the innocent turned not so innocent victim whose own terrible luck kicks everything into motion. The distraction, Reese. Yes, said distraction involves fake blood and screaming in public, and yes, Reese was born to play this role. The grease man, Santiago. His skills include looking older than a teenager in a suit, and extreme agility due to years as a champion diver, as well as staying calm when your friends are freaking out. So obviously essential. The driver, Keegan. Unfortunately, Keegan is also the most disturbed by the scale of the felonies they are about to commit, and the most likely to cut and run. The mark, Robert Foster, aka Bellamy's all but absent father. Bellamy and her mother have gotten along just fine with the paltry child support Foster has been paying for the last 18 years, but they hit a snag when Bellamy cites him on her financial aid application for MIT. Foster is now a billionaire, and his wealth disqualifies her from any assistance. Bellamy, Nari, Reese, Santiago, and Keegan decide to use their unique set of skills to take Bellamy's fate into their own hands with a heist that, well, yes, is a little morally questionable, but isn't depriving your own daughter of an education she's worked her butt off for pretty morally questionable too. Lillian Clark's debut is a hilarious and thought-provoking Robin Hood story for the 21st century. This totally gives me Death Prefers Blonde vibes. Like, for real. I am so for this. I'm excited for this book. Fun. Okay, let's finish this heart-wrenching story. We're almost done. She opened the box and found her newest book by her favorite author. It had a bird on the cover. Underneath that was another book with a bird on the cover. But it was a journal. She opened the book and found an inscription from Chloe. And then it's the letter from Chloe. Jillian's heart soared as she read her daughter's words. And it continued the letter about how Daddy would be proud. Love you more than blazers. Her highest compliment. Jillian turned the page and found a bookmark drawn by Jory, accompanied by these words. Busy like a bee, frolic like a butterfly, sing like a cricket, mama bug, fly free. The remaining pages were blank and waited for Jillian to fill them with memories and dreams. Finally, she was ready to face her future. The end. This story, wow. The very first story of the book had me wanting to cry. So what did you guys think of the first story? What did you think of the first gifts? I'm using the bookmark in here right now. I'm really, really excited about this book. The story ripped my heart out. I could see myself as Jillian, and yeah. Keep an eye out for day 2 coming hopefully soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!